Hello, a lovely warm welcome to Tax Chat, a program brought to you by Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA, in order to make your tax matters easier and simple. Today, we are looking at a very important topic, the tax obligation, the filing in of the 2025 annual income tax return. We are particularly focusing on what tax matters who missed the filing deadline should do to regularize their tax affairs. And helping us look at that in studio with me is MWENYA CHITI and DORIS MAWELE from Zambia Revenue Authority. Doris and MWENYA, good to have you on Tax Chat.
Thank you, Alice.
Yes. Today we are looking at a very important topic, which is the 2025 annual income tax filing. We want to find out the deadline for filing the 2025 annual income tax return was 21st June 2026. What is ZRA's message to taxpayers who did not submit their returns by the deadline?
Thank you for that question, Alice. So the Zambia Revenue Authority wishes to remind all taxpayers who have not yet submitted their 2025 annual income tax returns to do so immediately. So although the deadline, the statutory filing deadline, which like you rightly said, was 21st June 2026, although this has passed, we are asking affected taxpayers, those who have not yet filed their final annual income tax return, not to delay any further. So they are encouraged to regularize their tax affairs by filing their annual income tax return for 2025 immediately. So failure to submit a return actually results in penalties by the law. This is the Income Tax Act. So taxpayers should therefore comply without any further delay. The reason why we're encouraging them to not delay any further is because the more you delay, the higher the penalty. So in order for them to minimize the penalties that may have already arisen, they need to file their return without any further delay. And we're also saying that as Zambia Revenue Authority, we are committed to supporting them through the process. There may be some taxpayers who the delay in filing their return may be due to not knowing how to file their return. So what we're saying is our ZRA service centers are available to support them through the process. They can also contact us through our call center and any other channels that we have. We are there to support them through this process.
Okay. Doris, why is it important for taxpayers to file an annual income tax return?
Thank you for that question, Alice. So it is very important for taxpayers to file their annual income tax return because it is a legal requirement for all those who are registered under income tax. It is a legal requirement to file your annual income tax return. So the return allows a taxpayer to declare all the income that they made during the course of the year. And it also allows them to claim allowable deductions where applicable, as well as to determine the correct tax that needs to be paid. For us as ZRA, it helps us to verify that the taxpayer is accurate and that they have given us the right information and that they have followed their tax obligations. So filing a complete and accurate return helps taxpayers to remain compliant and also to avoid any penalties and interests. Just as my colleague MWENYA had mentioned, it helps them to avoid any enforcement measures and to maintain an up-to-date tax record with the authority.
Then what happens in a case where a taxpayer fails to file the annual income tax return by the deadline? MWENYA.
Okay, so failure to file an annual income tax return by the due date, which was 21st June of 2026, actually attracts a late filing penalty under the law. So the penalty is charged for each month and for part of a month during which the return remains outstanding. So this means that even part of a month may attract the full monthly penalty. So the applicable penalties are 1,000 penalty units. This is for an individual or any person other than a company. So 1,000 penalty units is equivalent to 400 kwacha per month. And then for a company, the penalty is 2,000 penalty units, which is equivalent to 800 kwacha per month. So what we're saying is a penalty unit, one penalty unit is equals to 14 ngwe. So taxpayers who have not yet filed should therefore submit their outstanding returns immediately. So filing without further delay will stop the return from accumulating higher penalties.
Okay. Are taxpayers required to keep records when filing their annual income tax returns?
Yes. So taxpayers are required by law to ensure that they keep business records of all activities and all transactions that may be taking place in their business. So the business records that they may keep are things like books of accounts. They may also keep invoices, receipts, bank statements, contracts, and also payroll records. So anything that is able to support whatever they file in their annual income tax return should be kept. And that is very, very important in order for them to give us correct information as they file their returns. So taxpayers are required by law to ensure that they keep records for a minimum of at least 6 years. This may be longer, as may be determined by the Commissioner General of the Zambia Revenue Authority. So maintaining complete and accurate records helps taxpayers to remain compliant, because the information that they are going to put in their return is going to be accurate and correct. So we urge all our taxpayers to ensure that they keep records of all their business transactions, because those will be required as they submit their annual income tax returns. It also makes any verification or audit process easier and more efficient.
Okay. Maybe just to ask another question, are taxpayers also required to attach supporting documents when submitting their annual income tax return, MWENYA?
Yes, so taxpayers are required to submit their annual income tax returns with supporting documentation, because this supporting documentation helps us, the Zambia Revenue Authority, to verify what the taxpayer has actually put in their return. So for large taxpayers, these are taxpayers who are categorized as large taxpayers, they're required to submit audited financial statements. And then for other taxpayers, these are those that are not categorized as large taxpayers, so they could be medium or they could be small taxpayers. They are required to submit relevant financial statements or tax computations or supporting schedules, which shows how they came about with their figures that are in their return that they are submitting. And then in addition to that, taxpayers are also required to, the return should be accompanied with a supporting declaration form. So this form is known as, there are two forms. There's the ITF 56A or the ITF 56B. So the form is dependent on the category of the taxpayer. And then taxpayers also, as Doris said, they need to maintain proper records. She mentioned for 6 years, or as the Commissioner General may specify. So these records, they need to make sure they maintain proper records. This could be invoices, it could be receipts, it could be their bank statements, it could be contracts that they have to make supply or construction, any other documents that support their business transactions and their business activities. So the key message here is that all figures that are going to be declared in the annual income tax return, they must be complete, they must be accurate, and they must be supported by relevant documentation.
Okay. In case you're just joining us, you are watching Tax Chat, and today we are looking at 2025 annual income tax return filing, and helping us look at that is MWENYA and Doris from Zambia Revenue Authority. For your comments and contribution, you can send in your message using our Facebook page, which is Lumen TV Zambia. Those that are watching us on Azam TV or Top Star, you can contact us and definitely we'll get back to you. To talk to ZRA, you can call them on 4 111. For now, we go on a short break. We'll be right back. Don't change the channel. Welcome back. You are still watching Tax Chat, a program brought to you by Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA. Just to dive into another question, Doris, we want to find out what happens if the account is submitted and not audited.
So the accounts submitted should be audited, but where they are not audited, we ask the taxpayer to fill in, as my colleague mentioned, MWENYA, Form ITF 56A or Form ITF 56B as may be applicable. So this declaration that will be in that form confirms that the accounts have been prepared from the business records and the financial position of the business. So taxpayers remain responsible for ensuring that they provide correct and accurate information to the authority. By law, they need to ensure that the information that they provide to the authority is correct. So as Zambia Revenue Authority, we do not expect our taxpayers to omit any information, to hide any transactions, so to say. But you need to ensure that all the information that is presented to the authority through your return, as you fill in the ITF 56A or B, should be correct and accurate. Providing false and inaccurate information, unsupported information, may result in penalties or other enforcement measures under the law.
Okay. MWENYA, are partnerships also required to file annual income tax returns?
Yes, Alice, partnerships are required to submit annual income tax returns. So the partnership return needs to include or provide details of the partnership. This includes the names of the partners. So if you and I are in a partnership, the partnership return will include our details, MWENYA CHITI and Alice Lungu. It will also include information about the income earned through the partnership, and then it will also include information on how that income will be allocated between us as partners, whether Alice is getting 60% of the income or MWENYA CHITI is getting 40% of the income. That needs to be included. So this helps us as Zambia Revenue Authority to verify the income that is generated through the partnership and also ensure that each partner's share is correctly accounted for. So that means as a partner, you're also required to file your income tax return, and your income tax return, if you have been allocated 60%, it needs to be consistent or in what is in the partnership annual income tax return. So you, as partnerships, partners need to ensure that information that is declared in their respective returns, as I have mentioned, is consistent with the information in the partnership return.
Okay. Will a taxpayer who files an annual income tax return but fails to pay the tax due on a time, will they face penalties?
Yes, of course they will. So filing an annual income tax return is only one aspect of tax compliance. Where tax is payable, the taxpayer needs to ensure that payment is made within a prescribed framework. So remember, tax compliance ensures that you file your return on time, you make your payment on time, and that you also maintain business records for all your activities and transactions that happen. So you will not just end at filing your return, but you need to ensure that payment is made. So failure to pay on time results in penalties. And as my colleague MWENYA mentioned, the longer you take to make payment, the more your penalties and interests will increase. So you need to ensure that you pay on time. And that is the emphasis that we would like to give to our taxpayers. So taxpayers who have filed their returns but have not yet paid, we encourage them to ensure that they pay and settle their outstanding liabilities as soon as possible without further delay in order to avoid accumulating additional interest, penalties, and other compliance consequences. So here, the key message is to ensure that your return is filed on time, you make payment on time, and that you ensure that your business records are kept properly, showing all your transactions. This is to avoid any additional costs to your business.
Okay. And can taxpayers apply for a waiver of penalties arising from late filing?
That is actually a very important question, and I'm glad you have asked it. Because usually, as Zambia Revenue Authorities, we are viewed as being heartless. We are not heartless. So yes, a taxpayer that has been charged penalties may apply to Zambia Revenue Authority for consideration of a penalty waiver. So the application is actually done entirely online through the ZRA Tax Online portal. So for those that want to know how to get access to the portal, you go to the Zambia Revenue official website, that is www.zra.org.zm. There you'll see, I don't know if that's yellow or gold. There'll be a line of yellow or gold with different tabs. You click on the tab that says Tax Portal. That will take you to the login page of the Tax Online. So on the login page, you will then put in your TPIN and your password. And then thereafter, it will generate a one-time password. That is an OTP. That one will be sent to the registered contacts for your business or for yourself as an individual. So that will be via SMS to your number that is on the system or via email. So once you receive the one-time password, you will input that and it will open up the portal. So once the portal is opened, we have some tabs that are on the left-hand side. You will look for the compliance module. So you will select compliance module. When you click on it, then there'll be an option to apply for a penalty waiver. So once you click on apply for a penalty waiver, it is there that you will need to now provide your reasons of why there has been a delay in submitting your returns, why there has not been timely compliance, the circumstances that led to us and that led to that delay. And then you also can attach any supporting evidence showing why there was a delay. And then once you do that, you click on submit. The message here, though, to our taxpayers is that application or submission of a penalty waiver application does not mean that automatically the penalty waiver will be approved or granted. What happens is every application is considered. It's what you have put in your penalty waiver application is now taken up for consideration based on its merits. So the Zambia Revenue Authority will take into account the reasons that you have provided. It will also take into account the supporting documentation that you've provided, and will also take into account your compliance history as a taxpayer. Is it your first time that you have delayed submitting your returns? Is it your 7th time? All those things are considered when looking at penalty waiver applications. So taxpayers are being encouraged, those who have not yet filed their 2025 annual income tax returns. We are aware that the deadline of 21st June has passed. So those that are coming through to file their returns and will then come through and apply for a penalty waiver, we're asking you to provide complete and accurate information and also provide any supporting documentation.
Okay. Doris, what options are available to taxpayers who are unable to settle their outstanding tax liabilities, including where an application for a penalty waiver has not been approved?
So as my colleague MWENYA mentioned, Zambia Revenue Authority is not rigid in how we deal with our taxpayers, we do realize that sometimes life happens, and for whatever reason or circumstances, the taxpayer may at times fail to pay their tax liabilities. So in an event where a taxpayer has even applied to a penalty waiver and it has not been approved, we are able to get into what we call a time to pay agreement, commonly known as a TPA. So a time to pay agreement is a formal agreement between the Zambia Revenue Authority and a taxpayer to allow a taxpayer to settle their outstanding liabilities in installments. Okay, so in order to apply for a TPA, a time to pay agreement, a taxpayer is required to submit all outstanding returns. So you need to ensure that your account is clean, all your outstanding returns are submitted. Then you need to write a letter to the director enforcement. You need to provide a 12-month cash flow projection. And then the taxpayer is also required to submit a bank statement covering a period of at least 3 months. So this should be the latest bank statement. And then to show commitment, a taxpayer needs to make an initial payment of at least 30% of the total outstanding liability. That way we are able to see that this taxpayer is committed and that they'll oblige and they'll be able to follow through with the agreement. You also need to provide proof of smart invoice registration where applicable. So ZRA, we've been singing about registering for smart invoice. You need to provide proof that you are registered for smart invoice where applicable. Then you need to ensure that you attach relevant supporting documentation, which may include financial statements. And you also need to demonstrate commitment to meeting future tax liabilities. So taxpayers should note, as my colleague MWENYA mentioned, that a time to pay agreement is not approved automatically. It doesn't mean that just because you have applied, then the authority will go ahead and approve your application. Each application is assessed, okay? And approval is based on a taxpayer's circumstances